Hi, everyone. This week, we wanted to follow up with the Silent Generation theme of covering subcultures and internet aesthetics, and we're going to cover health goth. So this is actually going to be a private episode. You're going to need to be subscribed to us on Patreon in order to listen to the full thing, which originally I thought this was maybe going to be a waste because, you know, these episodes are a chance for us to talk about things that are more personal or are more private. But this one, it's actually advantageous that like it's going to be private for a different reason because we're gonna talk like mad smack about someone, and we'll get into that. But we need to avoid getting sued for defamation.
And so we'll tread carefully. But yeah, like this episode is going to get into, you know, just like in C-Punk, like the genesis of an internet aesthetic, the kind of personalities that orbit around an internet aesthetic, and then also the kind of phenomenon of scene drama more broadly.
And we're going to cover a few other things that are like, I've sort of thought about doing an episode on them for different reasons. I don't think we ever would have, but like chavs, DIY scenes, and then funk.
Yeah.
Those three sort of fit into this.
Yeah. It couldn't be their own episodes, but they can like find a space in here.
Yeah. We're going to cover funk at the very end. That one I actually really would have loved to do an episode on. It's just like,
so? I wouldn't know. I think it's so new.
No, I thought we would have been too late to the game to talk about it because it was so big in 2023.
Yeah.
And then we launched at the very end of 2023. And so it already just felt like too old.
I feel like we really benefit from having like a good gap. Like it's kind of crazy to go through like in this episode, just like reading articles that are from like 2014, 15. Vice always puts a warning at the top of old articles. Like this article is more than 6 years old. And it's like, you know, that's okay. Like when you write good journalism, it should be able to last much longer than that. You just have to look at it through a different lens. But I don't think Vice ever had that kind of like longevity minded approach to things.
I mean, I think that happened after the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine because the mainstream media, you know, there had been actually previous coronavirus. They didn't turn into pandemics, but there were coronaviruses that circulated and people got sick. And so I think these old articles, people were sharing them and like, they didn't like that. And then also with the Ukraine war, you know, there was so much reporting on like the Nazi elements of the Ukrainian paramilitary forces that were like legitimate, but like they just didn't like fit that.
It was too nuanced. It had to be taken away. People couldn't be trusted with it.
But yeah, I think that might have been why. But I actually knew about coronaviruses before the pandemic even started because I did like a high school project on them. Whoa. And so when it happened, I was like, why do I...
My time to shine.
And I was like, why do I know like so much about these already? And then...
But it must have been so weird to see like everyone catch up to you and that like everyone became like, and people always talk about that with any like the submarine incident, you know, where it's like, oh, it's so great to walk into my office on Monday and everyone is a submarine expert now because everyone just starts forming like opinions on this stuff.
No, I've always been a bit of like a doomer. Like when I was in the middle of college, you know, I would all the time be looking at the news and be like Googling like viruses and like stock market crashes and the recession because I wanted to like anticipate things before that happen.
The big one, the big earthquake. Yellowstone.
No, for years
explosion.
I would like my family members, you know, I have family in California, but my family in Chicago will talk about moving back to California and I'll always dissuade them. Or I always used to dissuade them and be like, no, the earthquake. And
I think it's so much easier now of just like, no, the investment is very, like, it's a very low ROI. Like you got in at the wrong time. Like, I think that's much more of a danger than earthquakes.
Yeah. The housing crisis is a big enough deterrent already. But yeah, this is going to be a fun one. So we can start out by talking about like health goth origins. So health goth, I most associate it with this guy who is, or was a member of the Chicago DIY/club scene, Johnny Love. But he was not the creator of health goth. The creator of health goth, there are actually sort of three that we're going to refer to as the Portland Three because they're based out of Portland. They were Mike Grabarek, Jeremy Scott. The two of them were known as Magic Fades. They had a band together. And then the third was an artist named Chris Quintino. And they started the original health goth Facebook page in 2013.
Obviously Facebook sucks, you know, like everyone hates it and all that, but like I will very quietly support that there is two good things about Facebook. One is Facebook Marketplace, which is like the informal economy, and I love that you can get stuff for cheap. And